the top stories. Children among first to get Pfizer vaccine, oxygen replenished in Jamaican hospitals, and vaccines delivered at supermarkets in Brussels. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Sorry for the delay. Today is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. I am Mervan Thompson. Nationally, 4 children are among the first 12 persons to receive the first shots of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine at the Newtown Health Center today as the rollout begins. ZIZ's Shanique Harvey is on the ground witnessing the event as it unfolds. Health Minister Honorable Akila Barron-Nisbet is elated that Sky Academy's Isaiah, who is 13, is leading the charge among his peers in getting the jab.
Isaiah is 13 years old to be attending the Sky Academy, so Sky Academy knows that's one in the bucket for students who will be vaccinated, and so we are looking forward to other students stepping forward. Thank you very much, Isaiah, for stepping forward. I would like to introduce you to our beautiful Sonori, who will be taking you inside to the next step shortly to be vaccinated. See how beautiful she is and how beautiful all of our nurses are. We don't even need
ill. Minister Barron-Nisbet also welcomed all who are present and commended the parents who've allowed their children to be a part of this first batch. For the remainder of this week, the Pfizer vaccine will be administered only at the Newtown Health Center. Persons are asked to contact the center and give your name and phone number in order to make an appointment, as the vaccines have to be thawed in preparation for administration. The contact number to make appointments is 662-8216. That is 662-8216. Minister of Education, Honorable Jonelle Powell, is praising the recognition TVET now receives in the Federation. During brief remarks on Monday, he emphasized the skills program at the Technical Vocational Education Training School.
I am pleased to recognize and applaud the place of prominence that must be given to the technical vocational education training in our education system in the Federation. All students in our schools, regardless of their intellectual abilities, must be given the opportunity to pursue technical and vocational skills.
Minister Powell noted that the efforts of Dr. Courtney Thompson, head of the TVET Secretariat, and Melva Walters, head of the building unit during the last school year, guaranteed that each child will be given an opportunity to engage in TVET education.
The TVET Secretariat, headed by Dr. Courtney Thompson, and the project unit, headed by Ms. Melva Walters, spearheaded the refurbishment, renovation, and equipping of all TVET spaces at 5 of our secondary schools in St. Kitts, except for the Bastia High School. This project was carried out under the TVET Enhancement Project, funded by the Caribbean Development Bank and the federal government of St. Kitts and Nevis.
The minister stated that a committee consisting of individuals across the education sector in the Federation will develop a concept and framework for the establishment of a national training institute in St. Kitts and Nevis to meet the needs of the labor market.
Persons from across the education sector in St. Kitts and Nevis have formed a core committee charged with the responsibility of developing the concept and framework for the establishment of a national training institute in the Federation. This initiative will culminate in the amalgamation of TVET spaces in St. Kitts and Nevis. It is anticipated that such an entity will provide opportunities for training and certification of TVET disciplines that will enable our education system to respond to the labor market needs in our country.
Honorable Minister of Education, Honorable Jonelle Powell. And finally, on the local scene, disaster preparedness will be the topic of discussion on Working for You later today. The panel will include officials from the National Disaster Committee, namely Dr. Eric Brown of the Environment Subcommittee and Mr. Kervin Lloyd of the Foreign Assistance Subcommittee. Working for You airs every Wednesday at 1:30 on ZIZ Radio and other participating stations. It is also live streamed on the YouTube channels and Facebook pages of ZIZ and the SKNIS. Regionally, following a scare of low supplies of oxygen at hospitals in Jamaica earlier this week, health officials are reporting that they have been replenished and hope they last for some time. CVM Live with this report.
Up to Sunday morning, all hospitals across the island were low on oxygen supply. Some were out and had to be supplemented. Monday morning, bulk oxygen arrived in the island and was immediately dispatched to hospitals to alleviate the shortage. Head of the Western Regional Health Authority, Andrade Sinclair, says operations are now relatively calm following the restoration of supplies.
We have replenished all of our empty cylinders and we are readily going ahead with replenishing the ones that are used as they are used. In terms of liquid oxygen, each of the hospitals have been replaced with their liquid oxygen. Things should be a little bit smoother from here on. It shouldn't be as crazy as you've been seeing it for the last 2 weeks, based on my projection.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Southern Regional Health Authority, Wayne Chen, is hoping that the supply will be enough to last for several days as the hospitals buckle under pressure.
Mandeville Regional has exceeded its official bed count. We officially have 225 beds, but in reality, we probably have closer to about 260. We are making more bed space as we speak. We expect to move the outpatient department across the road to the Seventh-day Adventist Church Hall, and this is by Wednesday.
He says the numbers are expected to increase in the coming weeks.
We should be looking at more restrictions as we see where the numbers are, the high positivity rate, the rise in daily cases. That should certainly inform any future lockdown.
A health crisis exacerbated daily. Robeanne Williams for CVM Live.
Antigua and Barbuda has taken the decision to delay the reopening of schools by 1 week following a surge in COVID-19 cases. Education Director Claire Brown provided details. ABS's Jamie J. Roche reports.
The Ministry of Education is hoping many students 12 years and older will take the COVID-19 vaccine by the time schools reopen September 13. Education Director Claire Brown says this will make schools safer for face-to-face classes. The ministry has introduced a 3-tier system for school attendance. The Education Director says, as it stands, students will return to Tier 1 or Green Tier conditions, similar to the last school term.
Same way where everybody is coming to school for face-to-face instruction, in-person instruction. But as I said, the bigger schools, secondary, not every day. In primary schools, they came every day, but a morning, afternoon shift for the 4 schools that couldn't accommodate everybody on the plant.
If epidemiological conditions warrant, the ministry will move to Tier 2 or amber conditions, involving a mixture of face-to-face and remote classes.
Maybe we might have to go now not to 2 different groups, half-half, but we might have to go to, split it down 3 ways to reduce the number of students.
The director says if conditions worsen, they will have to move to full remote learning under the red tier or Tier 3.
We pray to God that we don't have to get to that place, and that's why we're talking vaccination. As much as we're talking it and appealing and begging and asking, we have to do it for our children.
The ministry is still working to fill gaps for students who face learning difficulties when the pandemic forced schools into full remote learning last year. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
Moving on to the international scene. Grocery shopping is usually for food and other supplies needed at home. But in Brussels, a trip to the grocery could include a COVID jab as a 4-week campaign begins to boost vaccination rates. Brian Carter, Euronews reports.
Getting a COVID-19 vaccine whilst buying groceries is now possible in Brussels. At this supermarket, customers can receive the single Johnson & Johnson jab in just 15 minutes, free of charge and without an appointment.
It doesn't matter where they do the vaccine, whether it's at the hospital or at the supermarket. It's the same quality control.
It's very practical. It's just one dose. You don't need to wait 2 or 3 months for another jab.
These vaccine units have been set up at several different stores around Brussels. The objective is to boost the vaccination rate in the Belgian capital, which currently lags behind the rest of the country.
We started yesterday and we had 92 people in one day for the 2 supermarkets where we have these vaccine units. It's a good result, and we think that over the 4 weeks of this campaign we will have a positive outcome.
Several NGOs have also created mobile vaccination units in a bid to reach out to marginalized communities. Since May, 1,700 people have been vaccinated through this initiative.
It's important to come towards people, and especially the homeless and undocumented populations, because their first priority is mainly housing, food, and by coming closer to them, we're able to get to a higher percentage of vaccinated amongst this population.
The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control also insists that the vaccine rollout should go hand in hand with sanitary measures, as well as information campaigns to counter vaccine hesitancy. Brian Carter for Euronews.
Although the Delta variant continues to spread across Southeast Asia, there are signs that lockdowns are working in Thailand and Indonesia to reduce it. Al Jazeera's Florence Louis reports.
Overworked and underpaid, healthcare workers in the Philippines are protesting in the capital, Manila. The country is once again seeing soaring rates of new infections, spurred by the highly transmissible Delta variant.
It is sad that many of us have died, many of us have become sick, and many have resigned or opted to retire early, yet we are still kneeling before the Department of Health to give us our benefits.
The government set aside special risk allowances for medical staff last year, but many say the compensation has not been paid. Malaysia too is seeing infection and death rates go up, despite a lockdown and a vaccination campaign, which has seen more than 45% of its population fully vaccinated. There are concerns the real numbers could be even higher.
We have public health experts that have been cited recently saying that for every 1 confirmed case of COVID-19, there's actually 2 cases of COVID-19 which go undetected.
He says it's important that other preventive measures like double masking and physical distancing continue to be practiced. Other countries are reporting lower infection rates. Indonesia, which saw a peak in cases last month, has started easing restrictions. Around 12% of schools in its capital, Jakarta, reopened their doors for the first time since the pandemic started. Schools in the city were supposed to reopen in June, but the plan was postponed as another wave of infections hit the country. Thailand too is seeing a dip in cases after a record high just 2 weeks ago. But the government has come under heavy criticism for its handling of the pandemic. The Thai parliament has begun a no-confidence debate on Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and 5 ministers, with a vote scheduled for Saturday. Florence Louis, Al Jazeera, Kuala Lumpur.
And now for the weather. Present weather is fair with southeasterly winds at 3 to 9 miles per hour, becoming variable or calm at times. Seas are not exceeding 1.2 meters or 4 feet. Weather forecasters say today will be partly sunny with periods of increased cloudiness and a 70% or a high chance of localized showers developing across portions of the island. Tonight will be fair to partly cloudy with a 20% or a slight chance of brief passing showers. Sunset today will be at 6:25 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow at 5:57 a.m. That brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Mervyn Thompson. Have a great day.